Good morning. We'll call our May meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority to order. Do we have any citizens to be heard? If not, I would have a motion to approve our minutes of our April 5th meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Consent docket, I think we need to pull item C, but I would have a motion unless anybody has any questions to approve item A and B.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, we've just got two items on individual consideration. Item A is a RFP for consultant for multimodal transportation management technology contract. So,
That's a mouthful.
though that is. And so I'll let Jason, if he would like to make a comment on it.
Yeah, just a couple of comments for background on this item. As you know, we have numerous software systems that we use to manage our transit operations. The two main systems that we use are Trapeze and TripSpark. Trapeze was implemented actually I think around 2002. TripSpark came a little bit later in 2013. But the point is, as we know, technology changes, seems like it's changing faster and faster every day. So what we're really asking the trust to do is consider this request for proposal for us to secure the services of a consultant to help us evaluate our current technology systems. I mean, as you know, at least one of them's been in place now over 10 years, the other one around 6. And so we really feel like it would be a benefit to have an independent consultant come in, take a look at these systems, make recommendations in terms of needs through a needs analysis, work with us on kind of putting a roadmap together for the future in terms of what we need to be looking for and upgrading it with our technology. And then, you know, potentially even helping us look at some alternatives that are out there. But this, with approval of this item, this would be really kind of the first step in a pretty lengthy process to do a thorough analysis and evaluation of our current systems. So you'll notice the estimated cost on it is $100,000. Obviously, we bring a contract back to the board for approval. The funding source is 80% federal and 20% local.
All right. Any questions? Then I'd have a motion to approve item A.
Move approval.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item B is a change order to the Santa Fe parking garage for tenant improvements. So this might be a good time to have a little update on our improvements and everything. Corey?
Good morning. Project's going extremely well. It's still on schedule to complete July 19th, which is pleasing. Change order 3 consists of some new sanitary sewer lines for brand new relocated bathrooms in the area, some plumbing for the kitchen area, deletion of security cameras, addition of bracing for some knee walls, a wall box and H2O lines for an ice maker. If you think behind your wash machine, that little box that you connect water to, something similar to that. Subtraction of a ladder, some additional hardware for access control, reinforcement for some exhaust fan louvers, and then some testing for concrete and welds. Total cost of this change order is an addition of $18,300.
Refresh my memory on, since we sold the garage, is the lease still with us, or is it with the new owners, or does it transfer to them at some point? Or
the lease, UCO does not occupy the space and does not pay rent because we're doing a full gut and build out. But the lease will fall under the new owners, and we'll stop managing the property this Sunday.
The parking garage?
The parking garage, but we will continue overseeing the project.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Just one other comment on that. With the increase of roughly $18,000 on this one. You'll recall last month we also brought a change order to the trust that I believe decreased the contract by $23,000. So we're still through the project slightly under that original contract amount, but we are working with our contractor. We are aware of some additional sewer line work that's probably going to need to be done, so we're anticipating probably another change order.
Yes, there will be another change order. It's likely that we'll spend every last penny of the budget, but we found some sewer work that needed to be done at Cotpa's expense.
Well, wasn't UCO they were occupying a portion of the facility, weren't they?
Correct. It's from the abandoned portions.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah,
so they're still occupying what they were occupying?
Oh, no, they're the only tenants in that building right now are Red Earth and Veolia.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? If not, I'd have a motion to approve item B. Thank you, Corey.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Next is our ratification in claims and payroll. Unless any of the trustees have any questions on that, I would have a motion to ratify. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Our financial report, budget to actual for the 9 months ended March 31st. Jason, if there's any comments you'd like to make?
Sure. I have a few comments on each one of your reports. If you could turn to page 2 in your budget to actual, we'll start with a discussion on our transportation operations. If we can look at the revenues first, I would just point out that the first 2 revenue lines there are our fare box and our fare media sales. We are continuing to come in under budget on what our revenue projection was for the fare box. I guess it's not surprising in that our ridership is also down just slightly for the year, so we would expect that. The federal grant revenue, again, just to point out that a lot of this revenue is reimbursement, has to do with the timing of expenses, when we incur the expense versus when we can receive the reimbursement. But through March, we're showing to be about $200,000 less in federal grant revenue than what we had expected, but still overall 96% of what we had budgeted. Looking at the expenditures, we hadn't talked about fuel in a few months, so just wanted to direct your attention to our fuel line there. We are experiencing savings of about $94,000 through March, and a lot of that just has to do with the actual budgeted, or the actual price we're paying for fuel is less than the price per gallon we use for our budget purposes. So continue to see significant savings in personal services, although we have, I should say, staff has done a great job in filling bus operator positions, so we would expect that actual expenditure compared to budget to get closer as we go through the year. Overall, our operating income, or our revenues in excess of expenditures through March of 2019 is just over $800,000. The next page here, page 3, this is our parking operations, and through March, you can see the first 3 revenue lines there: monthly contract revenue, transient revenue, event revenue. Although they're all in the high 90% of what we had expected, they are all under budget, and this is something that Corey and I and staff have visited about, and we're just monitoring it closely from here on out. A lot of that is tied to our occupancy. A lot of that is tied to the fact that we did not retain as many parkers as we had anticipated when we sold the Santa Fe garage and moved some of the customers in Santa Fe to other parking locations. So just letting you know, we are watching those revenues closely. Looking at the parking expenditures, parking garage operations, just a reminder here that we're generally a couple of months, I want to say behind, but it takes a couple of months for the invoices that Republic, our contractor for the off-street parking system, it takes a couple of months for when they bill us before it is reflected on this budget to actual. So when you look at that $1.5 million through March, you could actually add about $400,000 more to those expenses if you were looking at just what we had incurred through the year. So why do I go into that much detail? Basically just to point out that with our revenues being a little under target, you look at our operating income, we're still well ahead of revenues exceeding expenditures by about $2.2 million through this part of the fiscal year. Even with those expenses that we've incurred that aren't reflected in the budget to actual, we're still about $1.8 million ahead. So just wanted to try to provide some context to where we are, even with the revenues coming in a little under budget. On page 4, this is our river cruise operation. Again, our revenues here, our general fare revenues, you can see are about $13,000 under budget, but that's offset by revenues over budget on our specialty cruises of just over $10,000. When you look down at our expenses, our ferry contract operations, we're very close to where we should be in terms of budget versus actual. Actually about $8,000 less than what we had anticipated through this part of the fiscal year. So our operating income there reflects $200,000, but again, just reminding the trustees that we have received our entire general fund subsidy for the river operations. So as we finish up the fiscal year, we'll be spending down some of that revenue, so that operating income will shrink as we get towards the end of the fiscal year. On our bike share operations, page 5, 2 quick comments there. I wanted to point out on the revenues, when you see the bike share revenue, that very top line, when we budgeted that was really a combination of the revenue received from the users of the bike share and then also some anticipated sponsorship revenue. Well, we have not found a sponsor this year for the Spokey system. We had about $25,000 budgeted. So when you see that $31,000 variance, 25 of that is really attributable to the fact that we do not have a sponsor for the bike share system. It is something that we're continuing to work on, though, and our advertising firm, Houck Advertising, is going to be helping us with that. And then on the Spokey's operations, just to point out, we are about $10,000 over what we had budgeted in terms of expenses. A lot of that has to do with just particularly in the winter months when the ridership slows down, that's when we tend to pull the bikes in, do the repairs, do more than just normal maintenance. And so that's reflected in those expenses. But even so, overall, our operating revenues exceed our expenditures. And then finishing up on page 6, this is our streetcar operations. Again, a couple of comments on this. This is the first month, I believe, where we've shown any advertising revenue. This advertising revenue is generated from the streetcar platform sponsorships that you see, and that $29,000 actually reflects 1 month of our revenue from those sponsorships. So the way it works is essentially we open service in December. Our advertising firm billed for the advertising revenue in January. They receive payment in February, and so then we're able to book it in March. So we have about at least a 60-day, if not more, backlog there. So what does that mean? By the end of the fiscal year, we will actually exceed our original budget in advertising revenue on the streetcar operations. And then the last thing I would mention is on the streetcar operations line down in the expenditures, we have a similar situation with paying for the contracted streetcar service, similar to what we do on the parking side of operations, where when you look at those actual expenses for streetcar operations through March, that's really 7 months worth of expenses. So this operating income that you see here of $936,000 through March of 2019 will obviously shrink as we get through the end of the fiscal year and our expenses get caught up. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
One question back to the parking. I know when you and I visited, we took out the revenue for the Santa Fe when we sold it. How did we adjust the expenses for our parking contractor, since I guess Corey said that's over in this month?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it was a one-for-one. I mean, well, let me back up. When we budget revenues and expenditures per garage, and so just like we backed out the revenues we had attributable to the Santa Fe, we did the same thing with the expenses.
For the balance of the fiscal year?
That's exactly right.
All right, any other questions? Laura, you were making notes. Ask a question.
I don't have any questions. I was making notes to remind myself what these things are.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to approve our financials?
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right, our program reports. First is our transit system report. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, trustees. Thanks a lot for having us. I'm going to present 4 items of the March 2019 transit report: safety, ridership, on-time performance, almost forgot, and how we match up to our year-to-date report card. We were responsible for 3 preventable accidents during March. 2 of them resulted in no damage. 1 of them will cost us approximately $1,500. We were subject to 7 non-preventable accidents. Again, fortunately, the total cost on those were approximately $534. Now, this is a real testament to our operators to report every single time that they touch something with the bus that they don't intend to, which allows us in the 7 instances, for instance, in the 2 instances that resulted in no damage, to learn from each and every mistake that we make. And my hat's off to these guys, because that is not only the right thing to do, extremely honest, but it allows us to get better. If you look at this soon-to-be-released presentation of our ridership, you'll see that we provided 9,702 trips per weekday, and compared to 10,280 the previous March, which is a 5.6% decline. I'm going to briefly mention before we get to that, I'm going to briefly mention the just absolute wonderful thing, which is Sunday service that we started on the 27th of January. And I know that people love it because they tell me about it every time I'm at the transit center. So it's fantastic. In March, for instance, we, during the 5 Sundays, we provided 2,431 trips per Sunday, which is compared to the 2,682 trips the first month, which would have been February. It's approximately a 10% decline, but that's totally to be expected given the wonderful rollout that Michael Scroggins and everybody had with those delightful donuts and T-shirts and things. Of course, this service will continue to grow. Total ridership, by the way, for all days year to date in all services is down 2.5%. New night service. Thanks, Iris. You see that we provided 442 trips on an average night compared to 398, which is a 7% increase. Our on-time performance, you'll see that we increased from 66.13% to 70.82%, which is a 7% increase. Our report card, I'm just going to run through the percentages of attainment. Number of passengers Monday through Friday is 92%. Number of passengers operating day on the fixed route, number of passengers per service hour is 92%. 91% on our number of passengers per operating day Monday through Friday. It's, of course, increased from that if we include the other services. Percent of on-time bus arrivals is 92%. Percent of miles between road calls for fixed route is 88%. Number of vehicle accidents per 100,000 miles is 83%, which is a whole lot better than 100%. Number of passenger claims per 1,000 miles is 149%, and we're working on that. I want to say just quickly that with the recent inception of Sunday service, with the expanded night service, with the substantial increase in on-time performance, with your assistance, we are delivering to our patrons two of my favorite things: more and better. May I answer any questions?
How about the on-time performance for the streetcars with the changes in the street lights and all that? Is that
I'd be happy to answer that. Hello, Jesse.
Oh, Jesse can do it, okay.
Could you tell me the answer?
Well,
I suspect it's really good because those guys are happy too.
well, good.
Isn't that something? 98%.
All right, any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, Jesse. Sorry, I lumped the streetcars into the bus system, but that,
Kevin can answer all of them, no problem at all. All right, good morning.
morning.
Happy April. Hope everyone's enjoying all the wet weather and warm weather that we're having. I'm going.
Jesse, it's May.
Well, my board's for April. Yeah, you're right. Happy May. Happy May 3rd. I'll get caught up at some
And I guess the streetcar was the floods
It does, yeah.
stopped some trips because of water, I guess.
Yeah. This past week, we up on 11th Street in Harvey, we had some pretty high standing water, so we stopped for about 10 minutes until the water receded, and then we.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be sitting in those with the middle, and then the electricity overhead and everything.
Right, I know, right? Yeah, we're not going to do like Portland where the drive-through water
Okay.
that comes up to the windows. We're not going to do that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. So Oklahoma City Streetcar, Traffic Engineering, and Traffic Operations, we continue to work together to implement the signal prioritization. And so last month I had mentioned that we were hoping to get all that installed in April and to do our testing. However, we got held up a little bit with the Ethernet switches. They were a little bit back ordered, so those have came in now. The equipment's been installed, and our contract engineers flying into town May 15th to do the programming for the signals. And so we hope to see improvement there, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, right? And then also part of that improvement is we're continuing to work with traffic operations to continue to maximize timing with the existing signals that are already there. Like we've been able to create a corridor down Broadway with the signal timing at 6th and I believe 8th. So we're making corridors where we can, working together to try and improve times with the streetcar. So one of the other things that we did to improve service was, all along the streetcar route, we've got these parallel parking stalls where sometimes people tend to park outside the line. So we worked with Corey and his group, which just got to publicly say, if you want to see what a well-oiled machine looks like, Corey and his maintenance group did a fantastic job of getting us our enhanced parking markings on the parallel parking stalls there. It showed up when they said they were going to be there, got the work done. We anticipated a lot of out-of-town people showing up for the Memorial Marathon, so we wanted to make sure that we got these enhanced pavement markings done before that happened. And so they got in last Monday, got all of that work done, and we had it completed by Friday before everyone started showing up for the marathon. And so this is an example of Sheridan and Bricktown, where we saw several blockages in Sheridan, so we got those enhanced pavement markings installed there. Also on Broadway, this is where we saw most of our blockages on Broadway, and we've already started to see a decrease in blockages on Broadway thanks to the enhanced pavement markings there.
What does that say on the ground?
It says, do not block streetcar. What was it? I'm sorry.
He said, hey, dummy.
Yeah, not quite. Yeah, it says, please do not park over the line. You will be towed. So April was a big month of first for us, right? So one of the things that we had the privilege of working with is we worked with Oklahoma City Dodgers and the Oklahoma Fire Marshal because, as you know, at the end of a lot of Dodgers games, they do the end-of-game fireworks, right? And so the Fire Marshal, they will shut down Joe Carter, and they don't allow traffic through there. And so we worked with the Dodgers and the Fire Marshal to come up with a plan of how we could still continue service as much as possible and not be held up while the fireworks are going off. So the plan that we came up with is the priority one is to try to space the cars, figure out exactly when the fireworks are going to go off, try to space the cars so that they don't actually have to stop. But if we're not able to do that, say it's just bad timing or something like that, we're able to take the streetcar, and the police officer that's blocking the street will allow us to make that corner onto Joe Carter. And on Joe Carter, we have a streetcar-only lane, and so we're able to stop the streetcar just south of Sheridan in that streetcar-only lane so that we're not blocking traffic on Sheridan or anything like that. The fireworks go off, and then we take back off and go back on to Reno.
Maybe you could work with Jeannie to get that billed as a fireworks charter.
There you go, right? Yeah, everybody ride their bikes over, right? So the fireworks, they typically last about 4 to 5 minutes, and so it's actually kind of like what you mentioned, almost like having a private show of the fireworks, right? So you just look out the streetcar windows, and the fireworks are right there. So it's actually worked out really well. We've only really had to stop 1 or 2 times, and so the spacing idea is really working well. Again, another first. So this is the first season for the Oklahoma City Streetcar to be in service while the Thunder are in the playoffs. And so Michael and his team, Houck Advertising, worked with Oklahoma City Thunder to come up with these incredible wraps that we got. And so we had the privilege of running 2 Redbud cars and 2 Clear Sky Blue cars with the wraps on it for about 2 weeks there while the Thunder were in the playoffs. And this is one of those pictures there. And of course, everyone loved it, and so we had a lot of social media following. Mayor David Holt, Clarity Coffee, and Chad, and tons of other people were tweeting about it, how much they loved it. And then one of the cool things, and we've seen this a lot with the streetcar, but one of the cool things that we've seen is, and one of the things that I love is whenever people are like chasing the streetcar down the street, trying to get a picture of it and everything. It's just, and we saw a lot of that when these wraps came out. It's pretty exciting. Another first for us was the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon. This is the first season for us to be in operations. It's also the first season for the Memorial Marathon to have their new race course. And so that race course included the finish line here on Hudson and Sheridan. And so for the past 2 months, we've been working with Lieutenant George and her team, and Carrie and her team, and our safety crews and all that stuff, making sure that we could operate the streetcar through this area safely. And so what we did was we suspended service from 6 a.m. to about 10 a.m., and Lieutenant George was, watching the whole scene. I don't know if anybody saw her in the Memorial Marathon. She was over here and over here. I swear she cloned herself because she was everywhere. And so she was running around making sure that before we ever went into service, it was safe. We had the plan put in place. Wendy Perez, our Herzog safety manager, she was on scene. Me and Michael were there, and we made sure that the very first streetcar that came through worked perfectly. They set up human fences that you can see here, making sure that nobody crossed in front of the streetcar. They had a person walking in front of the streetcar, clearing the way. And so, as the day went on, the people that were around the area, it started to, just fewer people were around, so it got easier and easier. But this worked out perfect. And one of the safety things that we also did was we also put a speed restriction on the streetcar as it's traveling through that area. So the streetcar, as it started entering that area, would never travel above 2 miles per hour until it got up to 4th Street, and then it would resume its normal operating speed. So another thing that was new in April was we started our new Sunday service schedule. We began that on April 7th, and that new Sunday service schedule, again, is 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. We extended that one time during April when the Thunder was playing a home game. And it was one of the late games that they did, so it was an 8:30 game, and the last thing we want to do is get somebody to a game and then not have a way for them to get back home, right? So we extended that service till midnight, allowing them to be able to go to the game and get back to their car. One other thing that we started in April was the third Friday free. So on April 19th, we did our third Friday free for the streetcar and all of public transit in Oklahoma, and we saw great ridership on that day, and we're looking forward to doing it again this month. So the Alliance for Economic Development, Nicole and her group, they will put together these little tours. And so one of the tours that they did was Crew, it's a commercial real estate group. And so it's a commercial real estate group that goes, and they've got all these people together. And it's basically like a way of empowering women in the real estate industry. And, they work on lobbying issues and those types of things. And so Nicole was able to get this group together, and they came to Oklahoma City, rode the streetcar, all through downtown, exploring all the different areas of downtown. So we really enjoyed having them there. And then another thing that she did was she had Nicole had the Edmond Santa Fe High School group, the geography class. They came downtown, they rode the streetcar, and some of these kids this was the first time they've been downtown. Nearly all of them was the first time they ever rode the streetcar. And you can see in the pictures here, they're just riding around like, ooh and ah, and it was awesome to see. And all of them were like, oh man, we love the streetcar. Everybody wants to move downtown now. So I mean, this is what you want, right? So you're influencing the next generation. So we're obviously happy to do this and love doing this any chance we get. So here's our ridership. So this is our ridership by week. And so April was weeks 16, 17, 18, and 19. You can see that we're working our way toward higher ridership as we get into the summer months, as we expected. A big thing to note here, our total ridership so far, 204,000. So we've passed over that 200,000 ridership mark now, moving into April. So we're pretty excited about that. And then here's our ridership for April. A couple of days I wanted to note here were April 13th. So we saw a little bit, this was a Saturday, we saw a little bit lower ridership there, and one of the things that we attributed that lower ridership to was the nearly 3 inches of rain that we got that day. So it was a lot of people sought refuge in the streetcar, other people just stayed home, right? And then another day that I wanted was Saturday, April 27th, and so we saw a really nice jump there, and we attributed that to all the people coming from out of town, coming downtown to ride the streetcar, preparing for the Memorial Marathon the next day.
I think the Arts Festival probably
Also the
influenced
Arts
that.
Festival, you're absolutely right, yes. No Indian tacos on our streetcar, though, unless it has a lid on it.
Yeah, maybe put them on Monday where the ridership is lowest, I guess.
That'd be great, yeah, yeah, exactly. Let's make it a week-long event. I love it. So that's my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Just curious, have we checked ticketing on any ridership, and are
We
people
have.
pretty well buying the tickets and not, or?
Yeah. So I worked with Melissa, and I think last month we were seeing about a 3% fare evasion. So it's 10,000 times better than most other streetcar systems. And what we've seen is that, I've seen it myself, is that people it's Oklahoma, right? Nobody wants to break the rules. So everybody's like, hold the streetcar, I got to get my ticket. And like everybody's doing a really, really good job of buying their tickets. And a lot of people are using the mobile app also.
Okay.
One of the other things we included on our streetcar customer survey was asking respondents if they had been checked for a fare or been. So we're looking forward to sharing those results in the future.
So, I mean, we have been doing
Yep.
some checking,
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
sure a lot. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, any questions, Jesse? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, mobility management report.
Good morning. How's everybody doing
That
today?
seems to be a new report. Maybe we've had that before, but.
Yes, you did. Yes. Well, if you remember correctly, back at the first of the fiscal year, for the longest time, our division was called Special Services. And, since we're pushing to kind of modernize all the things that we do and provide more broad range of services, we felt like mobility management better captured what our ultimate goal was for our division, was to help people move from one place to the other. So just to start out, I want to let you know that the numbers we're giving you today for the ridership are the first 9 months of this fiscal year. So for our senior transportation services, these are the ones that are funded through our Older Americans Act grant with the Area-Wide Aging Agency. We've had a total of 33,140 senior transportation trips in the first 9 months. That is an increase of 4.6% over the same 9-month period the last fiscal year. So we're really pleased to see that the efforts we've been making and the outreach have really started to bear fruition. We have one senior transportation service that has taken a little bit of a dip in the ridership, but all of them, if you combined, it's 4.6. But some of them, like the weekly shopping, has gone up over 10%. So we're very, very excited about that. We have reapplied, if you'll remember, where we reapply every year for our area-wide grant, and we just found out earlier this week that we were awarded it again for next year, so we'll be bringing you that agreement in June. We talked a little bit about ridership. One of the big things that we did in April was the Informed Senior Seminar. And some of you may be familiar with this. This is a program that the Oklahoma City Action Center, the Oklahoma City Police Department, the Oklahoma City Fire Department, and the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office puts together every year. It's a seminar at OSU OKC for seniors. They talk a lot about safety when you're out in public. They talk about home safety. They do a lot of things about issues facing seniors. And this year, we were really excited when they approached us and asked if we would help coordinate the seminar and also speak at the seminar. So, and that was very successful. We reached about 230 seniors. There were some really good questions. And the best thing about the Informed Senior Seminar was this was the first outreach that we've had where we haven't mentioned the upcoming launch of the Embark Wellness Program, out loud to the public. And the response was tremendous. There was 1,000 questions. When do I sign up? Can I do it now? Does it start tomorrow? I mean, they're very excited, so we're quite excited to see how that's going to pan out when we get to July. Coming up in May is the Better with Age Health Fair, and that's at North Park Mall. And then, of course, in June, we're kind of taking a little bit of break from outreach because we're going to be doing sign-ups for the new Embark Well program. And speaking of Embark Well, Michael's staff has done an excellent job getting us this really nice graphic. And just as a reminder, it's going to serve 6 locations. The 2 Open Maps Wellness Centers up on North Rockwell, down on Walker. 2 of the parks locations, there'll be Woodson Park, which is just off 34th and South May, and Will Rogers Park up off I-44 and 36th Street. And then 2 YMCA locations, the one on Lincoln Park on Martin Luther King, and the one at the Baptist Healthy Living Center. We are going to start sign-ups for this program June 1st. Much like our senior transportation, it is not really an application, are you eligible type thing, except for the qualification that they be 60 years of age or older. It's really just about a 10-minute phone intake interview where we get their basic information and emergency contact and that type of thing and get them signed up. But as soon as they do that, they can start riding the next day. We are finalizing, hopefully next month, in your board packet, we'll put some flyers for this in there. We are finalizing those now. We just got finished with the logo, so we're excited to see how this is going to go. We also, last month, if you'll recall, you approved us to apply for the AARP grant. It's a small grant. It's called a Community Challenge Grant. We turned that in, and we should know the 1st of June if we received that to kind of help us offset the cost of this pilot program. And this year we were very, very excited. This year at Disability Awareness Day at the State Capitol, Embark was awarded the 2018 Access for All Partner of the Year Award. This is for our work and try to make sure that individuals with disabilities can access all of our services, whether it's needing to provide large print format of our different brochures, provided in a different language, provide some type of interpreter service, or just make some accommodations so that they can attend a meeting or board a bus properly. So we were very, very excited about that award. And unfortunately, the picture that we took with Jason didn't turn out, and he had to rush off to City Hall for a meeting, and so the only one that turned out was the one with me. So I didn't leave you out on purpose, I promise. And the last thing I have for you is our homeless and low-income programs. And again, first 9 months numbers. 39,000 bus passes, the 680 emergency taxi rides, and of course the Sheriff Fair coupon booklets are the ones that we've sold to Oklahoma City residents. And since I know that you are probably going to ask me about Sheriff Fair when I ask if anybody has any questions, I'll just go ahead and tell you. We are in the process of negotiating the final agreement. We have identified a new vendor. Because the new vendor has a different technology system and a different operations model, we are going to have to repackage the program somewhat to the way that it works. It will still provide the same type of service, it's just the way that the fares are paid for are going to change a little bit. We are working on that right now, and next month we hope to have you a full packet of information and everything. We've scheduled some community meetings to allow individuals that already had Sheriff Fair coupon books that were unexpired and unused to come in and turn those in for credit on the new program. So we're very excited about that. We think it's actually going to be some improvements to the program, and I think that the customers are actually going to like what they see.
So I do have a question about that, Marilyn. Mm-hmm. How would we characterize the impact that unexpected change had? How many rides do you think we forfeited at that point?
That one averages About 280 taxi rides when Yellow Cab was doing it a month, and that was weekdays, and about 80 on the weekends. The big thing for that group of people, because in order to participate in Sheriff Fair, you either have to have a disability that's documented through your doctor or be 60 years of age and over. Now, the individuals that have the documented disability often are also eligible for Embark Plus, so they can still travel around on the weekends. However, the seniors that used it to go on the weekends, because our senior programs do not run on the weekends, it did impact them somewhat being able to go to church and things like that, because a lot of our seniors use that Sheriff Fair program for church.
Probably not so much for medical appointments and things like that.
No, we've tried to absorb any requests for medical appointments directly into some of our other services, so nobody missed anything.
Okay, thank you.
And then, of course, if you'll recall, we partnered with the Community Transportation Centers of Association of America and the Oklahoma Transit Association to apply for the Arnall Family Foundation Transportation Innovation Grant. Now, this was the grant that is designed to assist the DHS offices and the Family Reunification Program to see if we can transition more children out of foster care and back into their home, because transportation is one of the biggest challenges that group faces in trying to complete their service plans that they're given by the Department of Human Services in order to get their children back. So we're quite excited about this. I don't have a lot to tell you right now. We are still negotiating contracts, but our next board report, we will have some excellent information about this for you. And with that, I will take any questions.
All right.
I just want a comment, 2 comments. One, your reports are always my favorite. No offense, Michael and Ricard. It just, it just really matters, these services. 2, when Councilwoman Nice and Hammond and I spoke at the Chambers event at VAST back in March to get to know the new council people, and they asked me what would each one of us, what would our one transformative project in MAPS be? Councilwoman Hammond said sidewalks, Nikki said housing. Guess what I said? and when I mentioned transportation, it was to your last slide's point. It was about, I told the chamber that the important work that Clay and just different people in the city have put in motion with criminal justice reform.
Right.
And that last slide is it. It's that missing component, because so many of those services I've learned. And I learned all this. I didn't know this. I mean, it's taken me learning more, meeting more, and talking with people at the doors and stuff. But so many of these services are so spread out across the city.
Correct.
And that transportation thing is what gets them behind. And so I can't wait for your next presentation.
Yes, that's yeah.
So.
And transportation is one of those type of things. It's just it affects everyone. I mean, it's the single thing that if you don't have it is going to negatively impact your life. It just is. There's no way to get around it.
I'm just so excited that you're doing this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Been a pretty short agenda, but do we have any items from the trustees? Other than James has spoke his piece, so no. No. Jason, any final comments?
Just going to say if we could receive the reports that we just heard.
I knew what you were going to say. All right. Do I have a motion to receive the reports?
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Do I still get to make a comment?
Yeah, now you get to make a comment.
Yeah, that's why, exactly. So, no, I did want to just mention to the trustees that we have started breaking ground on the actual CNG station infrastructure. We kicked off the improvements to the maintenance facility several months ago and have been kind of working on those throughout the winter. But next opportunity you have to come by the South May facility, you'll really see, you'll get a sense of where the station is going, the size of the station, the amount of work that's going into that project. So we're real excited to see that moving ahead. And so in future meetings, we'll bring some updates on the status of that project and how it progresses.
And you and I talked in our meeting, but you might just give a brief update on the convention center parking garage, the timetable, and how you feel things are going?
Sure. So what we're expecting, really the next step in the process is to present a preliminary report to the Board of Trustees. We'll be working on final design and bidding documents throughout the summer. And so hopefully, optimistically, we're able to give a notice to proceed, into summer to begin construction. And so with that timeline, we should be, at this point, we have no concerns if we meet that timeline of being able to have the garage constructed by the time the convention center wraps up its construction.
And they have started demolition of the gold building? Or?
Yep.
All right. Any other questions? All right. If not, then we're adjourned.